Have you heard about all the crazy cycling rules lately in Japan? Jeez, there's like 113 of them, and people are just really confused, including myself, because there are some rules that seem to contradict things, and there are some things that just make no sense as a cyclist, and even to motorists. I think a motorist would probably go, what the hell is that rule about? It's kind of dangerous. And I'm just going to quickly go over my thoughts and, we'll discuss quickly what the rules are. By the way, this is just an information sharing video. Please do your own research when it comes to looking up rules and regulations, because they keep on changing. That's one of the problems with this whole thing, is that sometimes they go on and on about doing this and that, and now they've made these new rules for cars, and cars now have to stay at least a meter away when they're overtaking a bicycle on the road. But that is just not possible in some situations. There is this rule in Japan where when you've got a yellow line down the middle of the road or in a lane, you're not allowed to change lanes. That's my understanding anyway. And so if you're on a one-lane road and you're cycling and there's a car behind you who wants to overtake you, technically, legally, he's not allowed to overtake you by going over onto the other side of the road, which is what a lot of people usually need to do when they're in that situation. So in this case, what happens? The driver, right, the motorist has to, if they want to overtake you, they have to break the law. And if they get caught, they have to pay a big fine. For the cyclist, this is where it gets really kind of grey and tricky, and where I think it's confusing a lot of people. The mass media or online or whoever it is, the understanding seems to be that all bicycles have to ride on the road from April 1, otherwise you get a fine. And that's, generally speaking, it's true, okay, that you should be on the road, not on the footpath. However, the last time I looked at the rule book, it says it's got really weird wording, and you really have to read the fine print. Actually, it's not weird wording, it's clear, but the rule itself is just really bizarre. So it says that you're supposed to, in principle, supposed to be on the road. However, if the road is dangerous, or for some whatever reason, like there's maybe some construction going on and you physically can't ride on the road, then in that case you are allowed to ride on the footpath. Also, there's an exclusion for people above 70 or something like that, or very, very young children on bicycles. Obviously, you can't have a 6-year-old on the road, but there are exclusions. And in those cases where you can't safely ride on the road, you are permitted to use the footpath with conditions. One of those conditions, and I agree with this strongly, is that you have to give way to pedestrians, okay? The pedestrian is always right on the footpath. You have no priority on the footpath as a cyclist, okay? That's one thing that when I first came here, I'll be honest, being an Australian, like back in Australia, we don't ride everywhere every day, okay? Some people might do that, but it's not as common as it is in Japan. Like in Japan, everyone is on a mamachari and using it to go to the train station, to go shopping or whatever. And so when I first got here and I first started cycling, I was looking at everyone else, and everyone else was cycling on the footpath, and I was like, okay, cool, whatever. I'll just do what the locals do. And I didn't realize how strict this rule actually is. Like, legally speaking, if you're involved in some kind of an accident, and if they find out that you were cycling too fast or you didn't give way to a pedestrian, you're at fault as the cyclist. Even if the pedestrian kind of did this unpredictable behavior and they suddenly jumped out in front of you, or like, it's not, unless it's like probably a really exceptional case, it's probably, usually the pedestrian is going to win in that situation, okay? Because as a cyclist, you're on a bigger vehicle. Pedestrian is not on a vehicle, so you have the responsibility to drive or cycle with more care than the pedestrian does, okay? And you can actually also cause more damage than a pedestrian can. So if someone just, if you're walking along the street and someone just bumps into you accidentally while they're on the phone or something, they're not going to cause much damage to you unless they knock you over, which is a lot rarer than, say a cyclist knocking you over if they're going too fast and they hit you. So that's one rule I'm totally with, and I totally understand, and I think it's a good rule, and you should be very, very careful when you're on the footpath. A good way that I saw it explained once in one of those booklets, the rule booklets, was that you should always be at a speed where you can quickly stop. And I find that easier to understand than, say, someone who says you have to stay under 10 kilometers an hour. Because maybe 10 k's an hour is maybe a bit too fast in certain situations, right? In certain locations, let's say there's a corner and it's a high traffic corner and there's a blind spot and people suddenly pop out of there. 10 k's is too fast. Someone's not going to be able to see you coming, right, around the corner. So in those situations, it's a very, very useful rule when you think about it. Like, if someone were to suddenly come out of that corner, would I be able to stop? And that for me is very easy to understand and to manage when I'm on a bike. So, sorry, it's coffee time. So that's one thing that's important to keep in mind. Always give way to pedestrians if you're in a situation where you must ride on the footpath. Another thing that's kind of conflicting is that, like, there's this sign that I saw. If I find the photo, I'll put it up because I took it about a month or two ago. There's this sign that has a little icon of, a bicycle and a pedestrian. It's a little round sign. When you see this sign on the footpath, it means that you're allowed to ride on the footpath. And with the rules that I mentioned, giving way to pedestrians, not going too fast and all that. And you're also, one other very important rule I forgot to mention, when you're cycling on the footpath, is to stay on the side of the footpath that is closest to the road. And that varies depending on which direction you're going, right? So if you're traveling down a road or a footpath where the road is to your right, then you need to stay on the right side of the footpath. If you're on a footpath where the road is to your left, then you have to stay on the left side of the footpath. Always the closest side to the road. Always remember that, because one of the reasons I think, well, there's a couple of reasons probably, one of them being that it keeps everyone consistent and in line, and pedestrians kind of know what to expect and they know that you're going to stay on that side and they're going to stay on their side, and it kind of clears that confusion up a little bit. The other reason, I think, I haven't read this anywhere, but just as someone who's experienced as a cyclist here, I think it's because the side that's furthest away from the road is where you have entrances to shops and residences. And so you might get someone walking out of a building and they won't have enough time to see you, and vice versa, and you're more likely to hit them, right? So I think there's those two reasons. Anyway, there's this sign that says you can cycle on the footpath with, following those rules. And I saw this sign and I was like, okay, but there's something interesting going on here, because usually it's just that sign and that's it. But there's this other rule in the rule book, last time I checked anyway, maybe it's changed again. But last time I checked, when there is a dedicated bicycle lane, the rule says that you must use that bicycle lane, okay? And I'm pretty sure it was black and white. Like, there was no kind of wording there, to me anyway, that meant that this was an optional thing. That's how I interpreted it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. You can let me know in the comments. And this is another thing, like, why don't they have courses for us? Like, I'd love to go. If my ward office sent me a little letter or a postcard and said, hey, we're offering these free lectures or seminars on the updated rules. If you want to attend, it's free. Just register and we'll put you in line, and, we'll send you the date that you can come. I reckon they could cover all this in like a 15-minute seminar, and it could even be done online. They could release a YouTube video. It doesn't even have to be a seminar. I just thought of that. Like, there's got to be a genius out there somewhere at the ward office or at the city who can run a campaign like this and just say, look, we realize the rules are really difficult and confusing, or maybe they don't want to admit that. They could just word it really nicely and say, look, we realize your concerns regarding the new rules and the fines, and we'd like to share this YouTube video with you to clear things up. If you have any questions, please go to the so-and-so counter at the ward office or to your local police box, Korban, or whatever, and ask the person in charge. And that would just make me feel a lot better. And I'm pretty sure it would help with, a lot of the anxiety and the frustration that everyone's experiencing right now. I don't know why they don't do that kind of thing. But yeah, so I keep on getting away from the point with this sign that I saw. So I wanted to explain that the circle sign with the pedestrian and the bicycle means that you can ride on the footpath. And the second rule being, if there's a dedicated bike lane, you have to use it. Now, this particular location had both. And I was like, so what are you supposed to, if you're a cyclist who wants to obey the rules, and I'd like to think like most of us do want to obey the rules, but this situation, it's so confusing. It's like, okay, so one, and mind you, at the same time, you have to concentrate on the road and the footpath and make sure you're not hitting people. I think that should be priority number one, not bloody looking around trying to decipher the signs and the laws. Okay, I mean, that takes away from your concentration and it increases the risk of actual accidents. I realize they're trying to prevent accidents and trying to increase safety with all this stuff, but they're actually going to cause accidents when they're distracting people with all this stuff. So where are you supposed to ride if you want to follow the rules? Are you supposed to go on the footpath? I mean, someone might be like, okay, well, I perceive that road as dangerous and I decide to ride on the footpath. But then is a cop going to stop you and say, hey, you're not allowed on the footpath, you don't have a good enough reason because there's a dedicated bike lane. Why weren't you using the bike lane? Or, do you have to ride in the bike lane? Which is it? And what happens if there's an accident and you're, say, on the footpath and you're like, well, I deemed that the road was, not safe. There was a parked car there, for example. And this happens. Cars park in bicycle lanes all the time. It's like people don't even give it a second thought, it feels like. It's just like, oh, it's a bike lane. It's, I'm just going to be a minute. I have to deliver something. And I get it. People make a living out of delivering things and selling things. And that's fine. I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm just saying that the way that it's been set up doesn't help anyone. What is that delivery person supposed to do? I sympathize. What the hell is he supposed to do? If he needs to stop somewhere to go down for a minute and give his customer this product, and there's literally nowhere else that he can stop, what is he supposed to do? He's not going to go to a parking station around the corner, spend 10 minutes, it doesn't work that way. So this whole thing, it feels like, and this is the biggest complaint I'm seeing online from netizens, is that enough thought or enough planning hasn't gone into the implementation of these rules. And I think up till now why people hadn't been so vocal about this. The rules have always existed, by the way. To my knowledge, there aren't any kind of dramatic new rules, apart from the one where cars have to be a metre away from you when they overtake you. So it's not like all the rules are brand new, all these 113 rules they're calling it, but the strictness or the enforcement of them is new, according to my understanding. So in the past, it was kind of like, a cop might just give you a warning, but now they're actually really publicizing this on TV, in the media, that cops are actually out on the streets with their ticket books and they're giving out these, they call them blue tickets apparently. They're giving out fines left, right and center to people who are breaking the rules. I personally haven't seen it yet in Nagoya, and I can't remember which city it was that I saw on the news, but there were some cops out there, doing this, and they're just doing their jobs. I mean, you can't personally blame a cop, right? They've got these rules that come from the government, from above, and they're just doing their jobs. Their bosses say, go out there and enforce these rules, you know. It's not like they're breaking the law. So I think it's quite difficult for everyone. It's difficult for the cops, it's difficult for the cyclists, and it's difficult for parents as well. Parents who have got kids, they don't want their kids breaking rules, you know, getting in trouble, having to pay fines on their behalf. So I don't know, like, what do you think? What do you guys reckon would have been a better way for the government to handle this? I think, like I said, my suggestion is they should at least put out some kind of a video, a YouTube video, or a special website maybe. They could put ads. Like, we haven't seen a single ad on X or on wherever. I haven't anyway. If you've seen one, let me know. Where they promote the education or the awareness of these rules and what we're supposed to do. You know, there's so much that they could have done to make this a bit better for everyone, to have people understand the rules a bit more and to have a bit less anxiety. I mean, it's just, you know, it defeats the purpose. Like I was saying before, I understand that they're trying to increase safety and minimize accidents and all that. And it kind of defeats that purpose, because now you've got a bunch of cyclists and motorists who are really nervous. Motorists, I'm pretty sure, from what I'm seeing online and what I'm hearing, motorists are nervous because they're like, what am I supposed to do if there's someone who's really slow on their bicycle, like they're going maybe 5Ks an hour or 10Ks an hour on the road, and this person, say, has a job to do and they have to deliver something or, you know, or whatever, and they can't overtake them. So that's a problem for drivers. So you've got these drivers who are worried about this, like, I don't want to break any rules. I don't want to, you know, obviously I don't want to hit a bicycle or a cyclist. And then you've got cyclists who are really anxious about, you know, they don't want to break any rules. They don't want to hurt people. They don't want to get hurt. So it's a bit of a mess. Anyway, that's all for this morning's rant. I'm not a ranter, by the way. A lot of you know you can look through my large library of videos and you'll see that I almost never rant. Or this might be my first rant video, but it's something that kind of personally touches me as someone who uses the bike almost every day. So yeah, I'd love to know what you think about these new rules, or if you're overseas, let me know what happens in your country with the rules. Are they really strict, or, you know, do they put a bit more effort into educating people and raising awareness? Anyway, it's time for me to head out, and I'll catch you later on. Bye for now. I love it.